The SportsBeat KC tour of college football media days continues with this episode featuring the Missouri Tigers. You'll hear from head coach Barry Odom, quarterback Kelly Bryant, and cornerback DeMarkus Acy. Also, the Kansas City Star's Mizzou beat writer Alex Schiffer and I will talk about the Tigers, the motivational possibilities of the NCAA-levied postseason ban, which Missouri is appealing. I'm Blair Kerkhoff, and this is SportsBeat KC, the sports podcast presented by the Kansas City Star. Let's start with a response from Barry Odom when asked about how the team would deal with a possible bowl ban.
I'm not sure. I wish I could make a great statement about the timing or how I feel. I do know this. I'm really proud of our administration. I'm thankful for our legal counsel. I'm thankful for the outside counsel that we've received. They've been very, very aggressive in our approach, but also respectful. And our timeline on that, we'll find out in the near future, I think. But also, for our team, I look at that, and we've talked about it a lot. If you sit around and think about that, and that's not anything that we're about. Okay, that does not put us in position to play really good on August 31st. Okay, we control what we have to have the opportunity to control, and right now that's not one of them. So, is it on their minds? Probably. Yeah. Is it on mine? Absolutely. But that is wasted thought at this point. It does nothing for the 2019 team. If we get the opportunity to play more than 12 games, then we'll take it. You bet. But it's kind of where we're at with it. I'm excited to get closure on it, but also it's something that we can't control.
Alex Schiffer, the Missouri beat writer for the Kansas City Star, joins us. Alex spent Monday, earlier this week, at SEC Media Days in Birmingham, Alabama. It was the first time I can remember, Alex, that Missouri was the leadoff school for SEC Media Days. And before we drill down into what was said and how it was interpreted and all the things you do from Media Days, I wanted to get, first of all, your impressions. You've been to SEC Media Days before, but because Missouri went first, do you think there was more attention devoted to the Tigers this time just because of their position in the batting order?
I definitely think they benefited from being first and being on the same day as a school like LSU and Florida, where they have big media contingents too. So I definitely think that they benefited from being earlier than, I think they were on the third day last year.
Yeah, it seems like traditionally they're on the third day for whatever reason. I know that the order of appearance often is based on coaches' preferences, and the more either seniority or success that you have, the more likely you're going to land on the date that you want. But if I'm Missouri, if I'm any school, I kind of like getting it over with. Get down there, get it over with, get back. And as we speak, there's still another full day of media. There's 2 full days. We're speaking on Wednesday around noon, and there's media days today, and it doesn't wrap up until Thursday in Alabama. So it's a long haul for the reporters, but it is fun. It's the beginning. It's the unofficial beginning of college football season, and just it's back at the Winfrey, as you said, in Atlanta last year at the College Football Hall of Fame. It's quite a setting for the SEC. I think the Big 12, where I was earlier this week, tried to win the setting battle by having theirs inside AT&T Stadium, home of the Dallas Cowboys. But just in terms of mass humanity, there really isn't anything that tops the SEC. Kind of set the scene a little bit for us, and just the number of people and how crowded it is, and what it's like coming down the escalator at the Winfrey Hotel.
Yeah, it's so you walk in, the Winfrey, which I didn't even realize till I was there, was that it's connected to a big mall.
Yeah.
Right? Where you walk in, there's a lobby. You're staring directly at Radio Row where all the coaches go. And out past them is the mall. There's a Belk right there, and you can see into the mall a little bit as to what else is there. And to your immediate right is the escalator you're talking about, where you go up and where the coaches come down. The autograph hounds essentially kind of meet they're just kind of stay at the bottom of the escalator and wait for the players, the coaches, et cetera, to come through. That escalator up leads directly to the big room and the TV room right across from each other. Depending upon your preference, obviously, everyone rotates through both those along, and the TV room is more of a smaller setting for print media, but all the cameras are there. It's more of it's like I'm trying to figure out how to explain it, but it's limited seating in the front in order for the cameras to have extended view in the back, and then obviously the big room right next to it is, as its name entails, bigger, and has about 4 or 5 rows of tables, 6 rows of tables per section.
And all filled. I mean, we're talking about hundreds and hundreds of reporters that are milling around on the second floor of the Winfrey Hotel. And I just remember the escalator down when Nick Saban or Gus Malzahn or then Mark Richt from Georgia would come down the escalator. They would land in a roped off group of fans with their helmets and their T-shirts and everything else to be signed. There is no scene like that in other media days. I've been to all of them in college football, and there is no other scene quite like the one at SEC Media Days when it's in Birmingham. Okay, and one other thing, Alex, before we talk about what was said, let's get an update on, if there is one, on the NCAA situation. It seems like Missouri should be making its formal appeal of the NCAA penalties that include the 1-year postseason ban sometime soon. Just give us a little update on what you know and what was said in Alabama about that.
Yeah, so Missouri is supposed to meet with the appeals committee any day now. I had a source tell me on Media Days later this week. So later this week, depending upon your definition, is Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday, or if they do weekend hearings, which I doubt they do, Saturday or Sunday. But they're supposed to meet this week. I think I would describe Missouri's stance as or feeling as cautiously optimistic. Talking to people in Media Days, I think that there's a lot of people that think that they have a lot of reason to get the appeal overturned, and there's a lot of people that also thought that the NCAA was right in its punishment. I think timing of all this is very interesting because we're seeing, with North Carolina State and potentially others in the near future getting handed the FBI infractions and to rephrase, I guess, the letter of infractions in relation to the FBI.
Notice of allegations from the NCAA, right?
That's the phrase I was looking for. And I think it's going to be interesting because if the NCAA upholds its ruling on Missouri, they're going to get even less cooperation than they were already going to get from all the schools in question. So I do think, given the timing of all this, that it's a bit of a watershed moment for the NCAA with this stuff, because I think it'd be in their favor, maybe be a little relaxing on some of the penalties if they want to get as much as they can from the schools they're about to hammer.
Right. Okay, we're going to take a short break to tell you about a new podcast from McClatchy Studios and the Miami Herald about Florida race car driver Randy Lanier's double life as a drug kingpin. Give it a listen.
The state of mind that racing would put me in was extraordinary. I put my own team together and ended up going to Indianapolis 500.
It will be quite a feather in Randy Lanier's cap. He is named Rookie of the Year.
I had plenty of sponsorship coming right from Columbia.
By the early 80s, a river of pot was flowing from Colombia to the United States. And it came in by the barge load, thanks to a drug kingpin who was hiding in plain sight.
I missed a race because I was bringing a load in. It was 135,000 pounds.
How much was that worth?
$44 million.
I'm Amy Driscoll.
And I'm Alex Harris. This summer, the Miami Herald and McClatchy Studios take you inside the story of Randy Lanier.
Oh, the most exciting race I've ever seen.
A tale of weed.
There was 2 guys always there. That was the FBI.
Speed.
Randy Lanier against the wall.
And the road ahead.
Everybody changes. Everything changes.
Smoked. Coming July 16th on Apple Podcasts and MiamiHerald.com/smoked.
It's definitely different. Clemson is, of course, well-known, school, won a few national titles, and then college football playoffs, consistently. Now you come to a long ways from home, like 12 hours away, being in Missouri, it's a show me state. And, I didn't even know that before after I committed. So, just seeing the chip that the whole state has on their shoulder, and this entire support, from this person to the next person, it just means a lot, and it just shows how much they care about the football.
I mean, I watched the film. We have a 24-hour rule, and after a game, you can doubt and be sad and whatnot, but in the game of football, that's not going to happen. I mean, in the years past, Missouri hasn't had that. That wasn't the only play that happened. The fifth down game. I don't know. It's a whole bunch of games happened in Missouri. It's pretty weird. Yeah, flea kicker. So I mean, I can't do nothing about it right now. So I just watched it away 24 hours and went right back, get focused on the next game. So I mean, it's unfortunate, but it happens.
So I got this right. 24-hour rule is 24 hours after the game. You can complain, be upset. Then
call everybody. Call your mom. Call your dad. Uncles, everybody calling your phone. And after that, you just say, okay, it's done.
Who'd you call?
Don't worry about it. I didn't call anybody. I just had.
Who called you?
Oh, a lot of people. I don't want to say. I didn't even answer a lot. I probably answered to my mom, my high school coach, and a couple other, extended family. But you just got to, go on with your life about that. You can't do nothing. You just don't see a lot of replays. So.
I was going to say, what was the reaction on your phone? Were there people taking shots at you and blaming you? Were there some people defending you? Or what was the reaction like? Yeah,
there's a lot of shots going on. It's a lot of, hey, you lost on the game. A lot of that. But like I said before, all you got to do is stay humble and say, Coach Odom does a great job of telling us to keep our blinders on. So usually after a game, I don't really check social media just because I know there's a lot of people that are just nagging at me. But to be honest, that just makes you have a tough skin. So just keep my blinders on and keep it pushing.
You heard from Tigers quarterback Kelly Bryant on playing with a chip-on-the-shoulder mentality, and cornerback DeMarkus Acy on putting in the rearview mirror the questionable final play pass interference call that led to Kentucky's winning points in last year's game at Columbia. We're back with Alex Schiffer, who spent a day in Hoover, Alabama at SEC Media Days talking to Coach Barry Odom, Missouri players about the upcoming season. And one person who received a lot of attention because I read it in stories that you wrote, Alex, was quarterback Kelly Bryant, the transfer from Clemson. He kind of held court, didn't he, with a lot of reporters who remember him from his career at Clemson, and now he's in the SEC. It's a bit of an unusual situation for Missouri to have a guy like him who has played in the college football playoff step in and take over the role. But what did reporters? I'm always curious about what people outside of the Missouri media, what were they curious about? What did they want to know about Kelly Bryant?
Yeah, we talked earlier about Missouri benefiting from going on the first day. I just want to say, because you talked about setting the scene, my jaw dropped at how many reporters treated Kelly Bryant as if he were a movie star. There were multiple television cameras following his every move. I've never seen a Missouri athlete get that kind of treatment other than Michael Porter Jr. at SEC tip-off his freshman season before the back injury and everything. I thought Drew Lock had a good following last year, but this was unmatched in my opinion as to how many people followed him. As for the questions, it was funny. A lot of people kept bringing up, I think the 3 to 4 biggest points were, especially with other SEC media, Florida reporters were there. Kelly Bryant heavily considered Florida and Arkansas, obviously with Chad Morris, Arkansas's coach, being his lead recruiter to Clemson. There were a lot of questions to him from both media contingents about just why did you go to Missouri over those schools. It was funny, talking. Kelly Bryant's parents were there to cheer him on. I've never heard of parents going to support their son at a media day, but it was cool. I enjoyed talking to them, and they kept getting questions. Was it really a close competition between Missouri and the other schools? His mother, Deborah, said no. It was more than just a landslide. So I thought that it was very fascinating just how many schools just kind of kept picking his brain on why Missouri. It's almost like they were in denial that he wound up there in some ways.
That is unusual to have the parents at a media days. I don't know if I've ever seen that. So did they follow him around from have media days work? There's the players are at a breakout table for the print, and then they go into separate rooms for television interviews. Did the parents follow their son around through all the interviews?
So it's funny, the way this developed, that we found out about it. I was kind of stalking Kelly myself when he was in a TV interview room, because he was about to go up the escalator back to be on set with Laura Rutledge. And I want to see how he handled the autograph hounds, because that last year was how I got my Drew Lock autograph story that ran about a year ago. I thought came out really well. And I already saw guys with like suitcases full of different SEC helmets and everything. So I was kind of waiting that out. So Kelly Bryant signs for everybody, and these two people emerge, and he gives a man in a Mizzou polo a big hug, and he gives this other woman a kiss. And I thought that was interesting. So we're on the escalator together with a couple of Mizzou officials. And I said, hey, who were those, relatives or family friends? He goes, no, those are my parents. And all the Mizzou officials were like, your parents are here? He's like, yeah, they came to say hi. Like, well, why didn't you tell us? He goes, well, it wasn't a big deal to me. I wasn't gonna ruin the day over this or redo everything. So when he was on set with Laura Rutledge, the Mizzou people went back to bring his parents up so they could hang out with him more. So it's funny how he didn't mention it, and just how, I kind of wondered if I didn't ride the escalator up with him and just ask out of curiosity, do I even get to meet his parents and everything?
How interesting. Okay, so how did Kelly Bryant sound? Was he had to be confident, and he had to speak to the reasons for his departure from Clemson? We all know that what happened there. Trevor Lawrence became the starter, and Kelly Bryant decided to leave. I mean, that's what happens in college football. Not just the quarterback position, but a lot of positions. But it gets a lot more attention when it's the quarterback. What did Kelly Bryant say about that?
Yeah, I thought he was very good about it. He kept getting asked about how'd you feel with Clemson smacking Alabama, and how much did you miss and everything, and how much regret did you have, if any? And he was saying that I didn't really have any regret. I wasn't surprised at the outcome of the game, but I did what I had to do, and it clearly worked out. I don't think there's any reason why Clemson should be angry at me. They're the national champions right now. It was interesting kind of hearing him talk about all that. He talked about, he's not bitter toward Trevor Lawrence. He's not a hateful person. He kept saying people say I'm a quitter, but I took advantage of the rule, and a lot of other people would have done the same if they were me. And he's not going to be the last one to do this.
Nope, he is absolutely not. He was the Missouri star at SEC Media Days, but there were other players there as well. Defensive back DeMarkus Acy was there, linebacker Garrett was there. You wrote a really nice story that appeared in today's Kansas City Star about DeMarkus Acy, and it revealed some things I didn't know about the aftermath of a play in which the final play of regulation in the Missouri home loss to Kentucky, in which he committed a penalty, or was flagged for defensive pass interference. So walk us through the conversations that you had with DeMarkus Acy and how he has assumed a leadership role on this team.
Yeah, when Missouri brought him, I always thought that DeMarkus Acy was a kind of a player that, from the perspective of a media member, he's got some personality, but has never really showed it around us. The two instances I had with him before that I thought that he had some good interview potential in him was he once called Gabe DeArmond an old man on Twitter for allegedly mishearing his Whataburger order, of all things. And this spring, to me, I was going to interview a new cornerbacks coach and former Chiefs position coach, David Gibbs. And DeMarkus told me, goes, hey, I heard you requested me today. I said, yeah, I was going to go get Gibbs first. And he goes, no, you get me right now. You don't get me at all. And as I was opening my mouth to answer that, he goes, you're not the only one in this town that's got stuff to do now or never. So
I like that.
Yeah, I know. I thought it was funny. I got him right there. So, I was surprised with how revealing and how much personality he showed. I put this in my tweet when I put out the story this morning, but when I was asking about the Kentucky aftermath and how quickly he got over it, because he did have a good, strong finish to the season. I mean, he played shaky in the Liberty Bowl, but he had 2 picks against Tennessee. I thought he was the hero of that game. If he doesn't have that interception right before halftime to set up the other touchdown, maybe it's a closer game. But when he said that a fan called him accusing him of point shaving, I just was you've been in the business a longer time than I've been, Blair, but that's one of the all-time most ridiculous things I think I've ever heard with that. And, him talking about, he woke up to a text next morning, hey, you lost us the game. And he said he kind of flushed it out. The only people he talked to that weekend were his mother and high school coach. And I thought he had he showed a lot of personality. And, Cale Garrett was the one that kind of got me on that story. He just said how he's been talking a lot more, and it's just something that you didn't really realize for a while. It's like, oh, wow, this time last year he'd really be quiet in the locker room. Now he's one of our biggest voices. So, and he was good with other reporters too. Usually you sometimes think, all right, well, he's being personable with me. I'm around him a lot. Is it going to translate to the big room and the other rooms? One guy asked him, what's it like playing Tennessee in November? And he goes, if you check the scores, it's
right.
It's fun. And, someone was asking about the Florida game, and he goes, he's like, we whooped them. And then he looked like he was going to kind of pour some gasoline on the fire, and then he kind of held back a little bit. So I thought he was the pleasant surprise to me that Cale Garrett's been one of the best interviews on the team since he got to Missouri. I thought DeMarkus Acy, Kelly Bryant had all the spotlight, but I thought it was kind of low-key DeMarkus Acy's coming out party with the media.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, Cale Garrett, the senior linebacker from Kearney, was also there. And what did you hear from him that was interesting?
Yeah, so a couple things. He got it. I forgot he's a big Chiefs fan. He got asked about defending Georgia, and he said, well, it's like Miracle Hartman's is a heck of a receiver. He's like, I was, the silver lining for me was when the Chiefs took him. He's a big time hiker. He's a really interesting guy off the field. He records his own electronic music, which I already knew. We've talked to him a lot about how he was a late flip from Navy to Missouri, and we were asking him a lot about the Navy and how much he knew and what he wanted to go into. And he really wanted to be a Navy SEAL had he stuck with his commitment to the Naval Academy. So that was a revealing thing about him. He's a very interesting guy off the field, and he was kind of talking more about the defense. Every player on Missouri's roster was extremely high on Jordan Elliott, who transferred from Texas a couple years ago. He had a good end of the season last year. He had the 3-sack game against Arkansas and the forced fumble that set up a touchdown. Everyone's saying that he could be first-team All-SEC and potentially a first-round pick for Missouri this year. I have an All-SEC ballot preseason I have to turn in by Friday. I don't know if he'll be on my ballot right now because I think he's more talk right now than the numbers will say. But I do think that he has a chance by the end of the season if he puts up the numbers to be, first team All-SEC and whatnot.
Okay. All right. I want to circle back to something we talked about earlier and dive into this a little bit more, and that is the possibility of the postseason ban and how that might affect the Tigers emotionally this year in both directions. If the postseason ban somehow is lifted, I do think that remains a long shot. I know that there have been signs this year that from the NCAA, maybe some mixed signals and some earlier decisions. But let's just say that that it happens and the postseason ban is lifted. Then the future just looks bright, I think, for Missouri. And then it's a regular season, right? It's the season that they all hope that in terms of goals and what's out there for them. But if the ban doesn't get lifted, and Missouri goes into the season knowing that there is no hope for a division championship or a postseason game, especially for a team that's showing up in some preseason top 25s, I want to run this by you. I think that is the ultimate chip on the shoulder, the ultimate us against the world attitude that Missouri can take into the season and use that in a positive way when it comes to on-field performance. Am I nuts about that?
No, I was telling somebody I think Missouri, if the bowl ban is upheld, I think Missouri's role model for this season is UCF. They try to go undefeated and just look like try to make the NCAA look absolutely terrible for not being able to put them in the college football playoff or the SEC title game. I think that's the role model that Missouri should kind of have. And maybe it helps that Barry Odom's former OC, Josh Heupel, is the new head coach of UCF, had his first season there last year. And obviously Jim Sturk is a member of the White family tree in the athletic department world, and Danny White being the AD at UCF has good relations, so they can easily get some inspirational material from them. But I think that's the role model for Missouri as of right now, from the bowl ban being upheld perspective, is just try to shock the world, make the NCAA look terrible, and be the team that could have been in the world of college football this year, and have everybody – I think they get the benefit of the doubt almost in the polls and whatnot because of being unable to play in a bowl game. So I think that's the role model if it gets upheld. If it gets lifted, I think it'd be very interesting the timing that it were to get lifted. I think they'll have an answer by the end of September. It's the NCAA, so take that with a cup of salt, heck with a grain of salt. And, I think if you're the team that Missouri plays, if they were to get notified in the middle of the week or the Monday before a game, I would hate to be the opposing coach, because now, I just imagine the potential of them understanding that they're playing for something big time. I mean, if they're undefeated, and this is a big hypothetical, but how upset would Kirby Smart be if Missouri's undefeated going into Georgia and Missouri finds out that week that they can play in a postseason game? I think it would be a very interesting game in Athens, because now it's real and they can really do some damage. So I think that the timing is going to be very interesting with all this, because, again, I think they'll get an answer, probably in September, October, and that's wishful thinking. But if it were to be prolonged and it were to get lifted, it would be very interesting to kind of see how that first game with clarity would be. Does it distract them and they get caught up in it, or do they just blow the doors off the team and now they're the national story?
I remember talking to Barry Odom earlier this summer, and the idea and the hope was, and to Jim Sturk as well, that some kind of decision would be known by the beginning of football season. But it sounds like that's if the Missouri appeal is going to be heard this week, then I think there's another period of time that the appeals committee has to meet, has to consider, and that could take the process into the season, which would be, look, the idea is to have it fully vetted, and for Missouri to they want Missouri thinks it's in the right on this appeal, and let the NCAA take as much time, reasonable amount of time as necessary to reach a decision. Okay, Alex, listen, appreciate you stopping by, and we will talk to you again soon. Links to Alex Schiffer's Mizzou coverage can be found in the show notes and on kansascity.com and in the print editions of the Kansas City Star. Thanks to producers Kathy Liu and Leah Becerra for all of their work during College Football Media Days week. We'll be back soon on SportsBeat KC, talking sports in Kansas City.